Who out there doesn't love the thrill and joy that's to be had from a good co-op video game? And in this video, we're once more taking a look into our top 10 most loved indie co-op games you can play right now in October 2020. Let's begin at number 10 with something of considerable rarity within gaming circles. A Way Out came out back in March of 2020, and it's a co-op game in the purest of forms. There is no single player option, and the only way is to play it split screen co-op either in couch or online mode. If you play it online, only one of you needs to own it, with the other player able to download a free online-only friend pass to play along. Having played through the 5 or so hours of playtime in the run-up to making this video, A Way Out still very much holds its own as something rather unique, with various storylines and plot twists that pack a punch as you play as either Leo or Vincent, all in a story about escape and revenge. At the same time, the game is mostly story-driven and undoubtedly cinematic. The co-op aspects, although at times feeling somewhat contrived, however, well, this doesn't take away from its entertainment value in what all in remains a highly polished and very enjoyable game that on balance feels somewhat unloved and underplayed. You can play A Way Out on PC by way of Steam and the EA Origin Store, with it also out on Xbox and the PlayStation 4.
Okay, I'm looking at what appears to be a deadly bomb.
Roger that. You're gonna have to defuse it.
But how?
At number 9, and the first of a few games in this rundown that can raise the blood pressure and ruin good friendships and marriages, we have Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. Best played if you're able in VR. The premise is simple. One player is tasked with defusing a ticking procedurally generated bomb and must describe what they see to the other players. The twist? Well, of course the other players cannot see the bomb, and only they have access to a bomb disposable manual, so cooperation and clear communication are critical in finding the correct solutions to make the bomb safe. It's an ideal local party game to play with friends and family, although we've also heard it's being used in corporate situations within team building exercises, which is probably more fun than the usual raft building and obstacle courses. In any case, you can play Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes via PC, PlayStation 4, PSVR, the Oculus Rift, HTC Vive, and more recently, the Nintendo Switch. At number 8, and the first new entry of this Q4 Best of Co-op Indie Games Countdown video, we have The Swords of Ditto, Mormo's Curse. While out a few years ago, this procedurally generated dungeon crawler underwent a colossal update around springtime of last year, which made it immensely more enjoyable to play, not just in single player, but also in the couch-only co-op mode. Gone went the tedious permadeath feature and many other aspects of the game that really did impact its quality of life. Other significant updates included new areas, new items, new enemies, and significant improvements in the game's overall performance. The single player is enjoyable enough, although it's the couch co-op option where the game finds its niche. It's super accessible, there's plenty of things to see and do, and comes with a good old-fashioned revival hug. The lack of an online co-op mode might bother some, although for us, that's not too much of an issue. The Swords of Ditto, Mormo's Curse is out on PC, the PlayStation 4, and the Nintendo Switch. Next up at number 7, we have another new entry. While Knights and Bikes comes with a single player option, it feels and honestly plays out best in either the local couch or online player modes. Set in the economic downturn towards the end of the 1980s, Knights and Bikes features a Victorial Penfersy island just off the Cornish coast. You play as either the relatively sheltered Demelza, having recently lost her mother, or Nessa, a more secure and generally streetwise kid, having recently arrived on the island. Now, Knights and Bikes feels measured in what it does within the overall combat and puzzle sections. While in the single-player mode, the AI can be a little too eager in helping you to progress. The puzzle solving isn't incredibly tricky, although there are places where it does pay to work collaboratively. Other nice little touches include the mini-game races, the narrative nods here and there to local Cornish culture, and the high-five healing mechanism. All in, Knights and Bikes can in places be a rather touching story, with it sensitively woven around the girls' differences. You can pick this one up on PC, the PlayStation 4 and the Nintendo Switch. Now up at number 6, and yet another new entry into our updated co-op countdown, we have Nex Machina. There's nothing too deep going on here, and if you're after a story, well, this one's a wafer thin, although that really doesn't matter. It's one of the best and most enjoyable twin-stick shooters of this generation, both in single and co-op modes, with it merging some of the best action moments you'll see in the arcade shooters of yesteryear. The gameplay is exceptionally fast, with this one being one of those where you can't afford to blink without the risk of getting yourself hit. It's also physically and mentally demanding, although many of the rooms are done and dusted within only a few moments. The local 2-player co-op option sees you play within a shared screen format, the camera moving and adjusting as the players move around the screen, zooming in and out accordingly. This works for the most part really well, although there are occasions where players can get lost in the sea of enemies. As a thoughtless blaster, there's almost nothing quite like it. Up next, and one of the most well-known and much-loved indie single-player games of the current generation, we have Stardew Valley. Made famous by its wholesome and super relaxing gameplay, the addition of the local and online co-op mode made perfect sense. As some of the features within other games, such as Animal Crossing, we here at Get Indie Gaming have used the online component as a way to connect with friends and family, and while we've not been able to meet many of them, doing so within the virtual world of Stardew Valley has felt, well, in all honesty, ever so wholesome. You can do as much or as little as you like as a group. You can share the chores of running the farm or go out and about in a group to explore. If it takes your fancy, you can fish, chat to the NPCs, or simply do very little and just chill while you perhaps speak with your friends, buddy and family over the phone. As a co-op game for late 2020, Stardew Valley feels as relevant today as it did when it first launched in single-player mode early in 2016. Up next at number 4, and something with a little more bombast, we have Deep Rock Galactic. There's no question, as others have already remarked, this one is an out-and-out tribute to Left 4 Dead. That being said, unlike so many other games within this subgenre, it isn't an out-and-out clone, with the developer taking the premise and moving it forwards within an entirely new arena. Deep Rock Galactic came out earlier in the year and features online co-op for up to 4 players, all within a procedurally generated environment set within a network of destructible caves with oodles upon oodles of alien monsters. Played with buddies, things can get really competitive and lively over chat, and it's one of the slickest reinterpretations of the co-op based shooter we've seen and played, well, since Left 4 Dead. For fans of that game and the genre, Deep Rock Galactic is pretty much unmissable. At number 3, in a game we missed during its early access, and for much of its life come its full launch earlier in the year, Risk of Rain 2 is the highest placing new entry in this new co-op countdown. It's essentially a third-person roguelike shooter and uses artifacts that have transformed the overall co-op play into something, well, quite very different, with it now sitting quite nicely alongside the likes of Destiny 2 for doing what it does. The artifacts are essentially unlockable codes, which change you and how others within your co-op party are able to play the game. They're mostly modifiers which offer up changes to the gameplay. Most of them, well, pretty much all of them, make the game harder for opposing players and teams. Unless you've already played this, there's little to be had in going into too much detail of what the artifacts actually do. Me saying they can turn enemies into elites, or having them spawn as different enemies when they die, or even having the entire team getting themselves killed if just one of them dies, doesn't really do it that justice. They do, however, transform what was an already wonderful co-op game into something that's even better, and has given Risk of Rain a tremendous amount of comeback and replayability. It's honestly one of the finest games of its kind. At number 2, we have Overcooked 2, the follow-up to the of course tremendously and ever brilliant Overcooked, although each are probably as good to play as the other. While the original game was built from the ground up as a couch co-op experience, this sequel was very much built around online versions folks were continually asking for in the original. Again, to be honest, and long-time fans of the channel will already know, we tend not to play too much online with randoms, although we have rinsed the online mode with friends and family. Just like the original, the gameplay is simple enough. You work in teams with your fellow chefs to produce individual dishes, all within the chaos of kitchens that do their best to disincentivize such a cohesive culinary creation process. It's utterly brilliant, enjoyable and entertaining to play, and at times can be incredibly damaging to friendships. Those of you who've played Overcooked 2 and the original will know exactly what we're talking about. Overcooked 2 is out on PCs and all of the usual consoles. At number 1, and to our tastes, the best and most fun co-op game you can play right now in October 2020, we have Moving Out. True, it's very similar in what it does as, let's say, Overcooked, although it is very much a different beast. Just like the Overcooked series, it does excel in being utterly fun, tremendously entertaining, and yet totally maddening and frustrating in equal measures. It's also a more demanding game to play well than Overcooked. Whereas in Overcooked, it's possible to manage your chefs to some degree and have them work on a particular station just like within real kitchens. There really isn't the option to be this organised within Moving Out. There's too much room for folks to go off and do their own thing, and any sort of removal foremanship is just straight up hard. In what's another fine move, the developers have used a whole heap of accessibility options, which makes this one that little bit easier to play. These range from additional time to complete the tasks, having the items disappear when they get inside the truck, and having options such as a dyslexic-friendly font. Like most of these games though, when the players are communicating with each other and with accuracy and well being understood, playing Moving Out can feel and look almost like a work of art, a delicate dance, it's even poetic. There's something quite exceptional about Moving Out, and we're happy to name it as our best, most loved co-op game you can play right now in October 2020. So, do you agree with our selections? And if not, which of these or anything else you think we've missed are your most much loved and played co-op games? Let us know down in the comments. Be sure to click that like button, and if you haven't already, now is a fine time to subscribe to the channel with all those notifications turned on, so not to miss out on any of our indie game content. Either way, many thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.